That's it, I had it. I am declaring war on myself. It's been going way too good for way too long of a time for this guy. So I say it's time to put a stop to that. Just stick with me for a little bit longer. I promise you this intro will make sense soon enough. Alcohol. It is delicious. It gives you the courage to make some of the worst decisions in your life. No great story starts with, so I was eating a salad, but what if I tell you that alcohol and some confusion led to the most embarrassing defeats in military history. Yes, even more embarrassing than that one time that Australia lost to some birds. Because this event in history was such a failure that the opposing force didn't even show up to this fight. And still around 10,000 soldiers died. I am talking about the Battle of Karánsebes. So it's 1787, and the Russians and the Ottomans are not getting along great. After multiple provocations by the Russians, the Ottomans declare war on Russia. So Catherine the Great goes to the Austrian Emperor Joseph II and is like, hey, do you remember that alliance that we made a few years ago? Well, would you look at that? The Ottomans just declared war on us. I mean, you're gonna help us, right? So now Austria is dragged into a war with the Ottomans. And we have what we refer to as the Austrian-Turkish War. It's now 1788, and Austria and Turkey are fighting for control of the Danube River. The Austrian army, which was approximately 100,000 men strong, and comprised of soldiers from various regions from the Habsburg Empire, was advancing to confront the Ottoman Turks. As the army set up camp near Karánsebes, scouts were sent out to search for Turkish forces on the other side of the river. So during one of these scouting missions, a group of hussars, which is a light cavalry, didn't encounter any Turks. However, they did encounter a group of Roma traders. And these guys had a supply of snaps, strong alcohol, which they offered to sell to the hussars. And of course, the hussars did take the offer and bought the alcohol, and then proceeded to drink and party. Back at the camp, people were starting to notice that it was taking a very long time for the scouting party to come back. So some infantry was sent out to go look for the hussars. These guys of course were expecting that they would find the hussars fighting with the Turks. However, when they came closer, instead of hearing the screams and cries of battle, they started to hear laughter and singing. And instead of finding a battle, they found a bunch of half-drunk hussars enjoying their snaps. The infantry, that was probably very annoyed to be sent out, only to find some drunk and partying hussars, demanded some of the snaps for themselves. The hussars, however, didn't feel much like sharing their alcohol. The situation of sharing or not sharing the alcohol quickly escalated, with both sides becoming increasingly agitated with each other, which of course led to a fight over the snaps. And amidst this chaos, somebody fired a shot. Now, it is unclear if it was the hussars who shot or it was the infantry, but it triggered a panic amongst the men. Believing that they were under attack by the Turks, the soldiers began fleeing back to the camp in confusion. Back in the camp, the shots were heard, and people were getting ready for what they believed was an imminent attack by the Turks. As the panicked soldiers ran back into the camp, they shouted "Turk! Turk!", further fueling the belief that the Ottoman army was attacking the camp. At the same time, the hussars were also fleeing through the camp. A corporal commander saw this and thought that it was a cavalry attack by the Ottoman army.
Oh no!
This guy then ordered the artillery to fire onto the cavalry, which was at that moment in the middle of the camp. As the artillery rained down on the camp, panic started to spread like wildfire. Attempts by the officers to restore order were futile, as chaos spread rapidly throughout the ranks. The officers tried to shout "Halt, halt" in German, but because many men didn't speak German, it was misinterpreted as "Allah, Allah", furthering the confusion of the soldiers in the camp. At this point, the soldiers started to turn on each other, with some of them firing their weapon indiscriminately. Some of them tried to run away from the imaginary enemy and drowned in the river nearby. Others stayed and fought bravely, against basically no one. Joseph II saw this chaos unfolding and ordered the army to retreat, which went as well as you might expect. In the chaos, he was pushed off his horse and landed in the creek nearby, which basically ended any chance of restoring order. When the dust settled, it became apparent that the Turks were nowhere near Karánsebes. When it was time to inspect the damages of the battle, they found that 3 cannons were missing, the chest containing the complete payroll of the army was missing, and around 10,000 soldiers were dead or wounded. 2 days later, when the Turks arrived, they took Karánsebes without a fight. And this whole ordeal was recorded in an Austrian military magazine in 1843. Wait, 1843? Isn't that like 45 years after the battle took place? Well, that is because we don't know with 100% certainty if this battle took place the way that I explained it right now, or if this battle happened at all. The first mention of this battle was in 1843, and yeah, that is 55 years after the battle happened. And at that point, yes, there might still be some first-hand accounts, but the average life expectancy around that time was around 64 years. So why would it take that long to record a battle like this? Now, of course, it could be an attempt by the Austrians to hide some embarrassing details by not recording too much of the battle. But with 10,000 killed or wounded, it's gonna be quite hard to hide that. Another option is that the article of 1843 is just an over-exaggeration of the story. Maybe something happened that night of 1788, but nothing on the scale described on this article.
I guess we'll never know.
In fact, that is the most likely thing that happened. Even the number of 10,000 killed or wounded is probably an over-exaggeration. The number came from an author that wrote a book in 1968, and nobody knows how he came up with this number. However, we do know that something happened in 1788, because the Ottomans did manage to capture Karánsebes without having to fight the Austrians. We also have accounts stating that the Austrian rearguard suffered around 150 casualties around Karánsebes, and that around 1,000 wounded men were taken to a fortress close by. So the Ottomans didn't have to fight, there's around 1,000 wounded, there's around 150 dead, which means that some bullshit did happen. But yeah, probably not on the scale that I just described it. So if it didn't happen exactly how I described it, why did I waste your time telling you this story? I don't know, I thought it was funny, I guess.